So hello again, everyone. We are back with another of our Travel Weekly video webcasts to keep you connected with the industry while you are largely now working from home. And today we have decided to focus on the touring and adventure sector, and we are joined by three members of ATAS, which is the Association of Touring and Adventure. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me. We've got Paul Melinis, who's the Managing Director of APT and also the Chairman of ATAS. Hello, Paul. And we've got Laurence Hicks, who is the chairman of TourHound, which is the aggregator for the touring and adventure sector. And then we've got Niel Alobaidi, who is the chief executive of Newmarket Holidays. So thank you all very much for joining us today. It's obviously it was a growth sector. It was doing brilliantly. ATAS was formed because we found it was such a dynamic and exciting sector. So perhaps if I start with you, Laurence, because you've probably got a view of it, from an umbrella view of the sector. How was it faring before we entered into this period of COVID-19 difficulty?
Yeah, well, we've witnessed huge growth in interest in the adventure and touring sector. It's probably one of the few niche areas of the travel sector that was tracking far more than other sectors within the industry. So, and we could see more and more tour operators taking on board touring product within their portfolios. So this was witness to the fact that it was actually a very popular sector and was growing in demand. People's appetite for touring holidays was growing hugely. And of course, we found ourselves very quickly in the latter weeks seeing it all completely decimated. And of course, the fact that that a lot of tours are picking up multi-destinations would have inflicted a lot of damage on either parts of tours when people were away, or parts of tours when people were looking to go away, and the inevitable happened where everybody closed their borders and the whole sector's just literally come to a grinding halt, like everything else. Very sad, really.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Well, let's bring in the two guys that are running touring companies and perhaps get your view. We'll start with you, Paul. Tell us what your last couple of weeks have been like. I imagine an enormous challenge for you operationally.
It has been, and it has been because we are operating tours across the globe, and I think that's the key. And what Laurence touched on is vital. Is tours were continuing until borders were shutting, and we had a lot of guests who were overseas. But I'm delighted to say that we brought everybody back now. Our last guest coming back from Australia and New Zealand, which was also a challenge because as time was going on, airlines were changing their procedure. And we had clients booked on certain airlines some days, then they were saying they couldn't travel on that airline the next day. And we were lucky enough to have operations down, our head office down in Melbourne, who really helped. And here it's about understanding that the client comes first. How can we work with that client to ensure the best outcome? And we made sure that it happened. We had guys on the ground talking to our clients in New Zealand, and we managed to bring them back all safe and sound to a point of the response when they've got back has been outstanding. They've sent in some wonderful letters to the reservations team here and the operations team saying how overwhelmed they are that we brought them back all at our expense, and they're happy to be home and safe. But it has been a challenge for everybody, I believe. I mean, the whole world is changing pace. It's not as we know it. And I think that's where the biggest challenge comes. But we're pleased that we hear that most of the UK guests now are home across the board. And it is, touring is a sector where someone could be up on the Inca Trail in Machu Picchu, or could be in New Zealand or Australia in the outback, up in the Kimberley. So, you've got challenges not to bring them back from Europe or from the States, where there are plenty of flights every day. So that was always going to be a challenge, but we've got everybody home and everyone's safe and sound.
Okay, well done. Thank you for that. Now let's come to you. Now you're relatively new to the touring sector. I know you've been in travel a long time, but quite a baptism of fire if you take into account what Paul said about the spread of guests all around the world, and obviously borders were closing at different times. So I imagine for a short while you were just redirecting clients to other destinations, but I guess over those days it became clear that the whole world was going to shut down. How's your experience been?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, 2 weeks into joining Newmarket, obviously we had Thomas Cook collapse, got through that into January, and then here we are with this. So it has been a baptism of fire. I think the one blessing we have is obviously we have a short haul and a long haul program, and the time of year meant that it only really impacted that long haul program initially. I think the one thing that's been tricky is the sheer uncertainty of it. It was clear quite early that this was going to be problematic, but the scale of it has grown week on week on week. So we've had to keep changing our plans as we've recognised it becoming a greater issue. Sharing some of the comments earlier, obviously we had customers all over the world. We have got them all back with the exception of a couple of our customers who we're looking after right now. Really positive feedback, again, very similarly from all those customers we got back, but exactly the same issues in that we thought we had them on a flight and then that airline stopped flying and then we moved them on to someone else. Had to take on huge costs to get everyone back, but that's part and parcel for a situation like this. Now it's rolling into the bookings in May, June, which is where our short haul program does all kick in. So the nature of the challenge is changing week on week as we're entering different bookings, different customers.
So has the touring sector across the board sort of suspended operations for the same sort of length of time, or are different operators suspending operations for you know different periods? I mean, what's sticking with you? Oh, sorry, Laurence.
No, we've seen notifications coming through from various operators that they're pretty much suspending most of their operations, certainly up until the end of May and many to the end of June. Right. But to be honest with you, as I put out in the article I wrote yesterday, I think this is going to be a much longer problem. I can't see borders opening up. I can't see governments very quick to welcome visitors with open arms into their territories, certainly until well into probably beyond the autumn, if that. So I think logistically, I think all operators need to start thinking a little bit more long term about this problem, not just the next coming months, because I can't realistically see people doing very much this side of the autumn.
Okay, let's pick up on that. I do want to come back to that in a minute, but obviously let's just talk about the immediate issue. I guess the first thing is, as both gentlemen have said, is getting the customers home. The current issue, I guess you're also dealing with, is those forward bookings then for those dates up until you've said you're suspending operations. And so we've had a big issue. Agents are talking to us all the time about the issue of whether they should be giving refunds to their customers or whether they should be confident to give these refund credit notes. Perhaps we could go to you first, Paul, and then back to Niel. But just to ask, what has been your policy? Has it varied depending on the customer, or what have you been telling your agent partners in terms of what they should be saying to their customers if they've got a forward booking that has to be cancelled?
I think we're in a world of the unknown. Policies are changing all the time. ABTA are trying to do what they can. The government are trying to help us all the time. But we've got to remember that when you're looking at a touring product isn't just made up of just us putting a tour together and guests traveling on our tour. It's made up of all different components, and that's what makes a tour special. We're working with small operators on the ground, local companies, local restaurants, down to transfer companies, airline space. So all of those together make a package. And the ultimate goal, coming back to what Laurence asked, is we should be cancelling them longer out. Well, we all know the situation isn't going to get any better anytime soon. But I think that we've got to understand, as tour operators, and some of us have larger businesses that are not just touring as well. And we've got to manage expectations of agents, and we've also got to manage expectations of our clients, but also understand our staffing levels too. Because, if we went out and said, look, we're going to be cancelling everything up to the end of October, you can imagine how many phone calls would be coming in on that day. We're just managing them on the nearest date possible and day by day. We're working with our agent partners, we're working with our direct clients as well.
Are you largely giving refunds, or are you trying where you can to get the customer to accept a credit refund?
Absolutely. I think that we've got to go into today's scenario is offering a credit note and saying, look, we want your clients to travel in 2021 and beyond. We're pretty flexible in that, because if clients want refunds, then you're coming up against, okay, look, you want us to pay all the money up front now, but there's also, we've got to ask the airline for their money, for example, and these other operators that enable us to move everything. And as you know, the challenges with the airlines, and I'm not just going after the airlines at the moment, but the challenges are, if a client cancels, then that airline ticket goes to pot. And the tour operator will have to pick up all that cost, because all they're saying is, if that client, their tickets have to stay in that client's name, and that means we can use them for 2021 or within 12 months, but it has to be in that client's name. Now, if clients that we know that our touring sector, we know the type of demographic our client is, they're unsure, and we fully understand that. But we can't also take on the hit of all the airline seats, because we're not just travelling in economy. Some are travelling in business and beyond. So
you've issued no refunds, but you've managed to get everyone to take a credit note that will last them until end of 2021.
Pretty much so, Lucy. But we're dealing with people on an individual basis. I would say, we're never going to say no. But we'll try to help everybody, because we're all in the same position. Every company is in the same place.
Okay. Is that the same for you, Neil? And as a supplementary question really is that, do you understand that some agents don't feel 100% comfortable giving a refund credit when they're not 100% sure it's going to be guaranteed? At the moment, we're waiting for a decision.
So answering the second point, totally understand it. It's the same challenge all our agents face talking to our direct customers. It's a difficult situation. Echoing exactly what was said then, I think one of the challenges we face is that it's not just airlines. I think airlines are getting a lot of focus, but we have cash sat with partners in many destinations globally. That's not easy to get hold of, but at the same time, if we try and take it off them, they're in danger of folding as well. So there's a knock-on effect globally of this really extraordinary crisis. And what we want to do is protect ourselves, but also protect partners, because it is time-boxed. To Laurence's point, nobody knows when it's going to end, and it's likely to be some time now, but it's time-boxed. And at the end of it, when we do come out of it, the travel industry will come back. So the best thing for everybody is that all the organisations are still around to fulfil that latent demand that will be there. And when we talk to our customers and we're discussing the options of moving to a new booking or taking a credit note, there's clearly a demand there. People are still wanting to travel. So we're doing the same thing. We are pushing very hard for people to move to new dates or to take credit notes. That takes incentivization as well. We're offering discounts off those dates and giving them a reason to want to do that. But that is our number one priority, and it's for the reason of protecting ourselves as a business, but also all our partners globally.
Yes, as you both have pointed out, it's a long food chain, isn't it, in the touring sector, and I guess there's lots of smaller suppliers hurting from this as well. Let's just come back to you, Laurence. You in this, you referenced an article. He's written an excellent article, which if you want to see is in full on the Travel Weekly website. But so you talk about how this period is a really important time for customer engagement. I guess that's for you as tour operators, but also you're advising, I think, travel agents to use this period to, obviously they don't want to be pushing deals to people, but explain what you mean that they should be keeping in regular touch.
Yeah, just one thing I want to add before I move to that point, Lucy, is I've been absolutely impressed with the way tour operators have dealt with their clients. and
Yeah.
agents as well. I think it's been magnificent across the board. I haven't heard one issue or seen any evidence that tour operators have tried to cut corners or scrimp and scrape on their responsibilities. And I think that shows credit to the industry and the operators that are within this particular sector. They're very difficult to repatriate people, and I think they've done an excellent job. So I just want to put that on record first of all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And secondly, to go to your point about keeping engaged with your customers, and it's true of operators and agents. Look, at the end of the day, if there's this wall of silence for God knows how many months from between you and your customers, those who you've communicated with over a long period of time, you've built up relationships with because they've come through your door or because you've emailed them or whatever. The last thing I think a customer wants to see is just this wall of silence for months upon end until you're ready to start selling them something, because I think they'll feel quite uncomfortable about that. I would feel uncomfortable about that as a consumer. And I think it will be good for you to continue engaging with them. They want to still travel in the future, and I think you need to whet their appetites. I think you need to keep sending them aspirational information. I've seen some operators sending out videos and blogs and all sorts about aspirational journeys of travel, and keeping their appetite there for travel in the future, even if it's I saw a very good circular that went out this morning with a fun bumper pack for kids to help keep kids amused from an operator as well this morning. I thought that was fantastic. So you can find ways of engaging with them, not in a heavy salesy way, but in a we're here with you as well kind of way. And I think that would go miles into restoring the relationship once they're ready to start booking again.
Okay, we'll come on to ask the guys what they're doing. I guess I also wanted to ask though, we talk about when it does come back, you need to be ready and you need to be keeping in touch, but clearly the touring and adventure sector, I'm sure, is expanding the demographic, and it's attracting younger people and it's attracting families, but there's no denying it is still predominantly touring is popular with the more mature traveller, people who've got disposable income, people who have got time. So does that worry you? Do you think that part of the market are going to be slower to return to travelling because they may be fearful, they may sometimes have underlying health issues, and they will be perhaps a little bit more nervous or reticent to travel? Do you worry about that? You're saying there's going to be latent demand, but do you worry that your sector as touring and adventure may be a little bit slower to recover? Paul?
I think the UK guest is resilient. We all know that. We know, and that's a great thing about the UK guest, because we bounce back quicker than a lot of other countries. With Laurence and what he's highlighting there about when do we push the restart button? Well, nobody knows when we push the restart button, but we need to keep people still engaged. We need to be delivering some inspirational content, but not in a salesy way. For example, I've got all of my marketing team still working in the business today. And we're doing that because we're looking at, okay, what's needed now? You can't just turn the light off and everybody leaves and goes on furlough and then see you in 6 weeks. It just doesn't work like that. We need to keep the business running. And I think that it also gives people opportunities in operations and product to think, okay, normally in BAU, everyone's so busy and just controlling the now and controlling the today. But now we've got opportunities to say, okay, what about this area? Have we looked at this area for future? Doing a lot of market research, a lot of intel. And I think the answer to your question, Lucy, is no, we're not worried, because people are sitting at home. Everybody is staying at home right now, or should be staying at home right now. And it's giving people time, the opportunity to research, because, where people are working 9 hours a day normally, or people, the more mature traveller will have their day filled up with all inspirational great things, whether that be going out, seeing friends, local clubs, etc. But now they are in their homes. So what the majority of us do is we're stuck on this, and we're researching whether an iPad, laptop, a telephone, and we're researching to where's the next place for me. you know, the thing with the mature traveller is in these times is that we're looking for the next thing. You know, we know that 60 is now 50, 70 is now 60, and we're more adventurous and we're looking to travel further afield. And I think this is going to work in our favour, because it's going to give people time to reflect and say, actually, the norm is not the norm. Let's look at something different in 21.
And I guess you're having to be more creative. I mean, I've certainly seen, quite understandably, lots of the TV adverts have dried up. You're saying people are at home, people are watching more telly than they ever have, but clearly companies can't afford to have massive marketing budgets with TV advertising. So, you know, we understand that, but I mean, how are you getting to your customers? What, are you having to be a bit more creative whilst they're in their homes to try and engage them, inspire them?
Yeah, there's two things, Lucy. I mean, we're continuing working on a database. I mean, online is absolutely vital for us. So we're delivering up inspirational content, and whether that's on video, whether that's through messaging, through social media as well, keeping it current, keeping it fun, and keeping it engaging. And I think that's the three things that we are concentrating on. But we have not stopped in that area. And I think that you can't, because as Laurence highlighted, you can't just turn the lights and then come back on. You're there, you know, your clients there every day. We're still getting bookings for 21. Which,
well,
you know,
let's talk about 2021 in a minute. Niall, let's just sorry, Paul, but I just want to bring Niall in. Are you doing something similar? How are you engaging with your customers? And when I say customers, I sort of mean both your actual traveling customers, but also your trade partners who are working very hard on your behalf.
Sure. So, well, if I can answer one of the earlier questions to Paul, our customer base is almost entirely 55 plus.
Yeah.
And obviously to us, understanding what their behaviours are going to be after this is pretty critical. We are talking to those existing customers about moving dates, and I'll come on to the impact to the business of furloughing and working from home.
Yeah.
But that's meant a lot of us have had to step in more. And as a senior management team, myself included, we've been supporting in calling customers, discussing with them the options available to them. And from that experience, I can tell you that our customers are no different from the customers I had previously when I was at TUI and Emirates. It's a broad spectrum. We have risk-averse customers who say they probably will never go on holiday again. We have some of the most gung-ho customers I've ever spoken to who would go next week if they could. So it is, I think, to tar an age group with a brush is slightly wrong. That they are, I sincerely believe they will behave very similar to the broader travel market. And a lot of people who've been cooped up inside for a long time will be desperate to get out and about. Now, will they go to somewhere where they perceive a risk? They won't. So a lot's going to depend on how this develops and which areas are deemed to be safe and which ones aren't. And that's our responsibility as a tour operator to respond to that and build a program around that and around our customers' trust and their demand. But I am confident that our customers, we will see a boom at the end of this. The tricky bit is knowing when the boom is.
And can you do that planning now, Niall, in terms of your program planning? I mean, is that really just based on when borders open and what governments do? Or can you now sort of start thinking, well, we're likely to have more people in our short haul program because it's not so far away? Or, I mean, is that something you can look at now? Or is that a waiting game as well?
It's too early. I mean, Italy was one of our biggest destinations, and obviously you can understand a lot of our conversations are, will people go back to Italy? The conversations I've had with customers is, if everything says Italy's safer than anywhere else, I'm more likely to want to go to Italy than somewhere else. So I guess we cannot make a call on that yet until we've seen how this is all going to roll out. And really, it's only 3-4 weeks that we've really understood what's happening. It's still very early in that curve. So I think from the planning forward perspective, I think we're good 2-3 weeks away from starting to really think about that in any detail. That's not to say I'm expecting it all to bounce back that early, but we'll start to get a view of how it's going to affect areas and which ones are more likely to come back quicker. Right now, it's focusing on those bookings we have at this point and how we support those customers. To the marketing piece, the irony is there is a huge number of people sat at home, and we've only been locked down for the best part of a week to 2 weeks, and already we are seeing bookings coming through for 2021. I think as this rolls on and people start to feel more secure and there is more understanding, people will want to start booking sooner and sooner. So in exactly the same way, it's about engagement. It's not about sending emails full of offers. It's great stories, it's blogs, it's aspirational things. With regards to things like TV, until we have more certainty on when we think it's going to, the bookings are going to start coming through, we can't invest in a big way. So that's paused more from the perspective of we need to understand when that's going to turn into a return on investment with bookings. So, but with regards to emails, we can still engage and we can still talk, and we're still working with our newspaper partners, but it's got to be inspirational content.
Yeah, okay. And that's very much for the actual consumer, the traveller. In terms of your travel agents, I mean, both of you have mentioned the government staff retention scheme, and a lot of companies have had to furlough or put some of their staff into temporary furlough measures. Does that affect, because people can't go out on the road? You've both got sales teams that we know well, and they would be normally going in and visiting agents and giving them merchandising material and inspiring them. So how does that piece work whilst they're all like we are today? I mean, I guess lots of video calls, but what have you been managing to get your sales teams or your trade engagement teams doing?
So it's oh, sorry, over to you, Paul.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Okay, so really the conversations with trade right now are largely operational type conversations. To your point, a lot of them are furloughed, a lot of the shops are closed. So being open, there isn't a lot of point in us pushing very hard on tactical activity with our trade partners. The conversations we're having with our direct partners are not there to drive bookings right now, they're to keep them engaged. So that's not a conversation we feel our trade partners are looking for. They've got a lot of operational things to get on with, and the discussion with them right now is supporting them through that process. But as we start to see this come through, as soon as there's a demand for more tactical or more sales type content, we'll definitely be straight onto it.
Okay. Paul, did you want to come in on that?
Sure. I mean, this was always the hardest thing to discuss, because you've got business development managers, sales managers who have and spend their life on the road. You know, admin is a no-no for salespeople. You know, they like talking to people, meeting people, engaging with people. You know, our challenge is that we have to say, sorry guys, the time is not now. And up to even recently, where they still want to go out and be part of it and help. So we've managed to engage them in-house. They've helped with, they've been open to every agent that's available to them. They're still looking after their accounts. They're all today working still with us. And we're looking at things like helping us call out, for example. So if we know that May is off the menu, then they've been talking to the partners and looking at the best solutions. And we've had partners come through and say, have you got any deals for 21? And how can you help with our marketing? And I will always have someone on the trade side in the business, even when we are going to be putting people on furlough, and the same in marketing. So we're there to help them.
Okay. We're coming towards the end of our time, Laurence. You wanted to jump in, but if I could just give you a couple of things to think about as well. I did want you to pick up on destinations, because in your former life, you were, of course, running a China specialist. I wonder what you thought about China and the Asia market, whether you think that will come back and at what stage it might. And also in your comment piece, a nice place to perhaps finish for all of us is that you said 2021 will be the year of travel. Both the gentlemen have said they've been seeing some 2021 bookings come in. So perhaps you can touch on what you think might be in store.
Yeah, just to pick up on just to finish off the point about the contact, from an operator's point of view, the agents are their customers, and engaging with them was as important as they are as engaging with their customers, their direct customers. But one thing I have noticed, and I'm sure we will all have noticed, is the surge of activity on social media. And I'm seeing absolutely tons and tons of stuff coming from agents and business development people who have been furloughed, who can't engage from an official point of view, otherwise they get into trouble, but they are using their social media still on a personal level to communicate with agents. And I think that's great. And that will keep the travel conversation going, within the community.
Yeah.
To your second question about about destinations, clearly China is going to be a very difficult, hard sell moving forward. But of course, they are the first nation that actually practically on 0 deaths and 0 new cases now. So one could say that potentially that could be one of the safest destinations to go to when people start relaxing their borders. But my real forecast is that I think we will see a big surge in the domestic market first. I think, as we start to lift restrictions, on our movement within the UK, then I think we're going to see a lot more movement around the UK. I think the domestic market, as our borders remain closed, as we can't go elsewhere and other people don't want us, I think the domestic market is going to be certainly the first to pick up, and then it'll slowly move towards more open borders. In terms of having a bit of a common goal, I think the industry needs to come together and really herald 2021 as the year of travel again, because many of us for a good part of this year are going to be locked indoors. We're not going to be able to travel. We're not going to be able to enjoy some of the aspirational stuff we want to. We're not going to be able to tick bucket lists and things like that. 2021, hopefully, is going to be the year we're going to be able to do that again. And I think the industry should get together and mark 2021 as the year of travel. I think that would really lift the industry, excite the consumer in terms of wanting their appetites to travel again. I think that's something we should all get behind.
All right. Well, I think we are at our half hour, gentlemen, and I think that's a really good and positive note to leave it on. But let's wish you all the best of luck, and we hope the touring and adventure sector, and certainly with the leadership of ATAS and you as chairman, we hope that you will support agents. I'm sure you will through this period. So thank you for your time. Thank you to Paul Melinis from APT and ATAS. Thank you to Laurence Hicks from TourHound, and thank you to Niel Alobaidi from Newmarket. And we'll hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.